So I'm a broker. I still own a real estate company. We were doing at one point, I think our biggest year, we did 496 transactions. And like the process of managing everything was a nightmare. And this was back in 2016. And I'm like, I should invest in this problem. So I created a very kind of basic desktop only version that we used in my office. And then I showed it to people because really now the problem has been addressed in a few different ways. But at the time, just having a repeatable process that you could sandwich between two dates that just allowed us to follow like a list of steps over and over was just so hard to find. And I think we were using Top Producer and some other programs that were tough. So we ended up building it. This was 2000, and I think we started in 2015. It maybe took a year to develop or so. So we're probably at 2016 at that point. And then we developed it, showed it to some people at some conferences. They wanted it. We built it so it could be like a web application. Then people wanted mobile devices. And it just, we didn't know what we were doing.
Into this startup that had all the headaches of a tech startup company.
Yes, I do not.
A bunch of realtors saying, but I want this and I want it to do this and I want it to do this. And all of a sudden you started adding and doing things to it.
Yeah.
And that's probably about when I saw it. And I had already been using Realty Commander, Short Sale Commander for years. And so in the transaction management process, we were in California. So we had Glide that was introduced to us.
Right.
And so what was interesting is I saw it and I went, hey, it's good. It's good. But you then went another direction. You went and said, I need to go. You stepped back almost, it seemed like a little bit. Tell me about that part. And then I'm going to head into the demo.
Yeah, sure. There's a strategy with building code where if you know what you're building, it's very easy. And you can just create your features and they all work together. What I was doing was basically trying to make features work for different people's businesses because I knew my business. I did not understand how it was done in other markets. I didn't know how other teams operated. And we would just start throwing features at it. So if I had to make a choice of, hey, we can clean up the code or we can throw features at it, we were just like throwing features at it. I didn't care. And then eventually got to a point where I said, okay, now let's make our mobile apps. And they're like, okay, your code is such a hot mess. We can either spend a year redoing all of it, or we can start from scratch. And at that point in time, I had to make a decision. Do I shut down the real estate brokerage, go all in on this tech company? My family I had young kids or younger kids at the time. And I think I just decided that, you know what, let's put this on the back burner. Let me just focus on things. Cause I was very distracted for a while, much to my wife's chagrin, that I was not earning the same kind of income because I was just totally focused on something else. Built back up the real estate company.
This is why when I'm coaching people and they tell me they have this passion for tech and they're going to go build a tech product on their own. And I have people in my world right now that are doing that. I am so adamant, go sell some real estate and go sell some real estate because there's so much money that has to go into building these products. And Brett is a perfect example of that. Because we have a hard 30-minute stop, I really want you to show this group who you're pitching to at this point.
Yeah.
These are all operations managers. There's a couple of team leaders on here who are all doing a lot of transactions. And we have this conversation around transaction management products a lot. It seems like it feels like it to me. And there's still people out there that aren't sure of what they're using. And they're processing transactions I was just on with a call with a very large company and they're building out Basecamp for that. And so the amount of heavy lifting to do that, it requires IT people, code, as you were saying, your code and all of that. Whereas your product, what you showed me recently in the last, week and a half or so, 2 weeks ago, I was really impressed. I was like, wow, okay. So for a team that is doing 100, 200, 300, and probably could push this product a little bit further on the numbers like that, it would work really well. And so I really want you to dive into it because I think they're going to be surprised.
Yeah, sure. So I'll go ahead. I think I can share my screen. And just so you guys know, I know it sounds like a doom and gloom situation, but we rebuilt the application. it's going extremely great at the moment. And now it's fun because we've figured out exactly what we need to do.
So I'm going to hop in.
Yeah,
So I tend to like interrupt. So just bear with me.
you're good.
One of the reasons I do that is because the first thing I want to point out is different things that people should look at. User interface is the number one thing I look at in all tech products. If an agent, a TC, an admin, a team lead doesn't like the user interface of a product, it will never get movement. That is just a fact.
Yeah.
So this user interface I thought was nice on my eyes.
Yeah. So when it comes to Nekst, we really try to focus on powerfully simple, which means you can go extremely complex with this, but the goal is that we can do powerful things, but it still remains very simple. So I'll work backwards, right? I'll show you the wow feature, and then we'll unravel that and talk about how we get there. For this transaction, we've been fortunate that when we rebuilt this product, this was, I'll just put OMN Boulevard. This happened to coincide with the time of AI. So as we were rebuilding these features, we could take advantage of some of the newest technology, which is exciting for our software compared to some of the other legacy programs. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a transaction simply by uploading a purchase contract. And this is one that actually came in to my real estate company yesterday. So it should be pretty relevant. But we've set this up, and the way that Nekst works is that we train our AI on your specific contract. Regardless of what market you're in, you have control over what is being tracked. But also, if you have a unique type of contract compared to what maybe others are using in your market, or if some people in your office use a state contract versus a local kind of regional contract, we can train this on whatever you want. So there's some programs out there that try to do AI, but they can pull out maybe the common elements. But when you have escrow versus earnest money or option periods, or there's all sorts of different terminology and all sorts of different processes, you really have to train your AI on a unique documentation or unique process based on the team. That's one of the biggest ways that we are unique, is that we are building you a custom solution. So it does take a little bit of time. When I say that, it'll take us 3 days at most to get everything set up. But what you can do is upload any contract we have 4 different technologies we use. That's OCR recognition, that's visual recognition, but it pulls out all of the information from the contract. We can have things written just like the contract is. So 7 days after the pending date, 3 days after the inspection contingency deadline ends, we move on to the next phase. But we're extracting all of this information. Okay. Little things that you may not want to retype, like the personal property included, special contingencies, any of those things we can pull out as well. And you have full control over what that looks like. So this is a slimmed down contract. This is step 1. And this has been like the hardest thing to build, but it actually works extremely well. The next step is going in, and instead of having, because some of you might have systems that you use where you move from a group of tasks to a group of tasks to a group of tasks, we have one big full workflow, and then you can pull out the pieces that you don't need. So for example, we'll pull out this home warranty because there's not one. If there's no inspections, you could pull out those tasks. So you're removing chunks at a time based on how the contract has been slimmed down. If it's a cash deal, you can just pull out the financing related tasks. And these are all workflows that you can design based on your team. This is where we look at the key dates or the important dates. And this is the step where we are aligning the contingencies in your template with the contract itself. So these little green icons down here means that we are shifting that task for you. So most of these are correct. If I want to look at which ones were not moved, I can do that. And these are mainly just scheduling walkthroughs or reminders. We'll skip to the last part where it's also going to pull the transaction party. So this is where we decide if, for those of you with teams, if you might assign a transaction to one of your coordinators, or if you might want to assign the buyer's agent to the file. We can say Julia is the transaction coordinator if we want to. And you would pick who from your team is making up this file. It'll also go in and start pulling out the buyer's name. So Joyce Quinlan, if she's already in your account, this information will come up, or we can add it. So it'll go through and pull everybody. This is the seller that was on here. We'll just add that person. I'm going to skip through the Huff Realty agent.
Couple of questions while you're doing in this zone. First off, Mariah asked, how often is the AI reading of the contract wrong? Is it reading it correctly? How often do you have to make corrections?
Yeah, with anything, it depends on the quality of kind of the document and whether it's legible, handwritten or not. So, for example,
Should you actually take a blank, clean contract from your world, your market, and have it read it, or
mhm.
does it read every individual contract per transaction?
So it'll read every. I guess I'm a little confused by that question.
Okay,
You
so
upload the contract and it reads
let me
that.
reword it.
Yeah,
You're not plugging in master blank areas. Every single time a new contract gets done, it's loading that contract and AI is reading it specific to the contract.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So for example, yeah, so it's contract to contract because the contract will change every time.
mm-hmm.
So like for example, this is the one I just uploaded. There's scratch throughs. You even have, I'm sure you guys have received contracts where you're not even sure what the right price is, or you get contracts where the seller hasn't even signed it, or they just totally forgot to put in a closing date. Like agents are not great at the details sometimes. It's not perfect, but the amazing thing about AI and the way that we have it trained is that it does a pretty good job about recognizing issues. And the more contracts that are getting loaded and the more corrections that get made by users is actually accelerating how well it's learning and figuring things out.
So like in California, we never would cross out a document. It's why dot loop is really frowned upon in California, because we don't go and cross off legal documents. We have to actually do a written counteroffer to that contract to change the terms of the contract. So it's going to read counteroffer number 1, counteroffer number 2, and it will learn, and then it'll pick up everything on that.
Yep, it'll read through the whole thing. There's been situations where sometimes where you get down to where it's tucked into document or page 27 of a 30-page attachment that it misses, or the purchase contract price is not changed. It just depends. The
it
point,
still takes a human to do a quick review.
yeah, you should always do a quick review. And there's a place on there, and I skipped through it, where you can go and you can change anything that's not correct. But it does a really good job. And we have a lot of users that also would complain if they felt that it wasn't working properly.
Yeah.
And we'll check in periodically. And usually they might say there was one thing that it was missing. Sometimes when people put check boxes over top of a document, it might get missed when it gets realigned. And I could show you the guts behind how it gets interpreted. So occasionally there might be something that's, yeah.
No, I'll leave that to you guys in the professional side.
It's not fun. But then, the nice thing is that you can change anything that's not correct. But the whole point is that you have a transaction ready to go in about 90 seconds.
That's a nice view right there for visually, really graphic there. Next question I had was, when you got to the contacts, is it integrating with Follow Up Boss, Sierra Interactive, several of the different places that sometimes?
Yeah, so that's part of the roadmap. That is the feature we are turning to basically starting in December, is building out those integrations. And it'll be a combination of Zapier, which will allow cross functionality in the short term. Follow Up Boss has a great API that's relatively easy to work with. So we'll be rolling out features at a time, starting with just sharing contacts. And then we can talk about pushing information back into the CRM. So I imagine that would probably be a feature that we roll out in pieces beginning no later than January, and it'll continue to be more robust. But we are focused on targeting integrations with, and we don't have these yet, okay? But the whole reason we redeveloped the software was for these integrations, because we recognize the importance. There's been other things that we've been prioritizing. The AI pieces were one that we launched a couple months ago. Right now, we're redoing a lot of the email integrations that'll be done by the end of this month, so that you can log in and send email directly from your Gmail account or using your own domain if it's not part of Gmail. Those will be rolling out next Friday, and then another release around the end of the month. So you'll have full email functionality, which should be exciting. So yeah, we recognize the importance. Unfortunately, we're not there yet, but it's coming up here very soon.
Great.
I have a quick question. So let's say when you have a fall through and you need to move like a listing back to active, how simple is that with reloading tasks?
Sure. Yep. So I'll show you two things, and then we'll skip to that. So let's say the closing gets delayed and we push it back a week. We would come in here to our end date, shift it to the 24th, and click update. and it'll say, here's all the tasks that were linked to that end date, right? Because we can build all these tasks around the closing date, and then we can adjust. And same thing if, let's say we get the contract, everybody signed it on the 1st, you find out it wasn't actually delivered to the 2nd, we can shift everything forward an additional day. Just depends on how much communication you get when you receive that contract. So you can shift things easily as dates change. When it comes to moving between a listing and a pending, so right now, for us to utilize the AI feature, what we recommend that you do is when you create a listing, you can come in here, roll it out. When you move to pending, instead of using the same transaction, which I know would be ideal, there's a way that you can basically archive this and then create a new transaction that is pending. When you upload, or it's like a pending seller transaction. Those are the 4 or the 5 different types that we offer. If you had to pop back to the listing, you can do so. What you're losing from that when you start over is going to be basically the team setup and the transaction contacts. But when you upload the contract, it's going to pull all that information back in. You're going to be able to just click OK to put the same people into the transaction because their information will already be loaded. So we just suggest that you treat them as 2 separate ones rather than having to unroll things. It's just too complicated to go backwards and relaunch a workflow in that utilizing the same transaction ID.
I would always recommend that if you have a cancellation of a deal and it's your listing, you're canceling the whole transaction anyways, and you're starting from scratch, but the listing information is still there, but you're going to have new contracts anyways, right? So let me reword that. You're using it as a listing coordination product. So the listing as a listing is still in there. And then you're just at the new contract as a next.
Yeah. And you can move transactions between different statuses, active, closed, and archived. There are people that will use the same transaction, and you can manually, let's say that we'll take an active property, and we'll just take this one on Wichita, and then we can, let's say that we are moving, from a listing. We'll pretend like this is a listing. Now it's a pending seller. We'll choose our workflow. So we want to run this new action plan. And this is effective. We're under contract effective today, and we're closing roughly 30 days from now. Whoops, let me do one more month. And then we click update. So if you do want to actually relaunch a plan and change things, you'll go back through the process, of adding new people, manually adding these details and just going in and changing, because there's not a way to upload a contract. But if you want to do it manually, you could. And then when you launch it, it says, what should we do with the old tasks? So what do you want to do with all those listing tasks? You can remove them or you can leave them on there. So if you want to run, let's say like a mega open house, like action plan on top of a listing, you can run simultaneous plans. But when it comes to integrating the AI feature, it was super complicated to get that to work with utilizing the same transaction and multiple different workflows. Because part of this is, it's not only that we're pulling out the information, but we're also tying that information to your tasks. So when you create your action plans, we need to make sure that that your template or your workflow recognizes that, okay, for this particular task, we'll call it inspection contingency deadline. Normally it's 10 days, but if it's 7, we need you to change this task to 7 when we launch our action plan. So by linking a task to the actual detail box or the piece of information from the contract, that's how we get your action plans talking to your contracts, if that makes sense. This is an example workflow. It consists of 3 different types of tasks. You can have standard tasks, which is just like a to-do item. You can have emails. For example, the standard stuff that most of you send, it's personalized, that you can include any of those pieces of information from the contract, or you can send out a text message task. And they're all hybrid, so that the email task is a task. There's not a task saying send this email. It's literally, here's your email. This is the subject line. Here's the body of the message. Here's who it's being sent to. Here's who is CC'd. Here's who is blind copied on it as well. You can do a stair-step approach to tasks where it's first this, then this. And if we go back to our transaction, that is one thing I didn't show you. I think this is the one we were working with. when you have all of those emails that go out day one, this is, for example, what we're sending to the co-op agent on the deal that just says, hey, congratulations, here's all the important dates. You guys all get the same emails. They all basically send back and forth. And we click on the preview button, you can see that everything populates. The purchase contract is there as well. So it makes launching of these transactions super simple. What's interesting now is we're seeing people using the software, sending the same emails back and forth. So they're just like cross doing everything, which is funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mariah, you want to unmute yourself really quick? I'm not quite sure your question.
Yeah, that's okay. I think I've got it answered because I was just, our brokerage probably functions a little bit differently as like all of our admin are using our transaction management system. And we basically pass it down the pipeline. So we start with CMA, go to pre-listing, and we just move the deal stages as they progress down the funnel. But I think Kelly already met with Brett separately and talked about a few things. So I don't want to hog up. And yeah, if it's not applicable.
Well, I'm sure if other people will have is Brett said he'd be willing to build certain workflows out for us. So if we've got a referral follow-up workflow, Brett said we can totally implement that workflow for you, right? Which is fantastic. Yeah, you can build cancellation workflows. You can build lease workflows if you work leases. There's a lot of things that you can do when you're able to customize.
Right. And actually, since you guys operate as a group, if you want to share these with other users, you just put in their email address. And as long as they have a Nekst account, it'll populate in their account as well. So if one of you wants to do all the heavy lifting and build something that you use and want to share it with a group, that is a really easy way to pass things around.
Oh, that's nice. So other users can share their templates and stuff. And to the point you were making, Mariah, when you have a listing coordinator and then you have a transaction coordinator and maybe you have a closing VA or something, they're all going to be parties to the same transaction. It's just it'll move through the flow the same way as you guys are working your other product.
Yeah. So, for others that have a similar setup, a lot of it is how much can it be customized. It can be very customized. You can create whatever roles you want. So if everyone is like a success officer or like a happiness officer, whatever you want, you can call it whatever you want. But you can create all these different roles. And then as you're building out workflows, you would just decide for any of these action plans, what's being assigned to what role. So if your role is CMA czar, you can have that role and then you'll launch an action plan. Whoever does it, as long as, for example, Mariah is on that contract, she will get assigned those tasks. Okay. So you can all be a part of it. You just may not have tasks because it belongs to somebody else. And then you can choose whether you keep it in listing status at that time. We have a status called other. Eventually you'll be able to create additional statuses. So if you want to have one that's called lease, if you want to have one that's called post-transaction success, you can move things around as you shift people around. All the different groups are customizable. I'm trying to think what else you would even want to customize. One of the things
that gets asked a lot from ops managers, TCs, and team leads is that a team lead running a lot of transactions might want to see an at-a-glance once a week or whenever of what's happening and where the stages are of the transactions that are under contract or listed. So if you got 27 listings going and they're all in here being monitored, could you get a one sheet or something that's an easy view for a team lead to see?
Yep. So the best that we can do right now, okay, and this is still an application that's getting actively improved. So you can control based on type which fields you want to show. For the moment, it is a static view, right? And you can sort by when things are closing, or if you just want to see certain fields, if you want to track commission that's being earned or whatever it might be, you can pick and choose. You can filter by certain team members and find information that way. We do not have a physical reporting feature where you can pull like commission summary by agent or potentially other things like that. You can see the next upcoming key date, but that is one area that we know needs to improve and something that we will be working to improve so that you can create a weekly report, whether you want to send it to your agents or not.
Can I choose all listings and export to a spreadsheet and hand it to my team lead?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. So we don't have a way to really get information out of here. But it's one of those features that the nice thing is that I know exactly what's missing. The downside is me having to prioritize like what's the most important thing, and then working on them in that order. And then occasionally I think, hey, this is going to be super cool if we do this. And sometimes we pivot the team into something that's even, you maybe don't even realize you want, but I know is going to be a big hit. So there's different things that we'll prioritize, but I know exactly what you're looking for, and we'll get there as soon as we can.
One of the other questions that comes up quite a bit is the past dues. If I want to see everything that's past due on your whole team right now, and who's assigned to it, whose tasks are overdue.
Yeah. So this is a kind of just our initial screen. The goal is that you're focused on what's due today. If you want to look ahead, you can move a date forward and look at what's due specifically on that date. Or you can look at everything that's past due. You can also look at the entire team versus yourself to see what's past due. If you want to move everything over a day, you can come in here and move the due date to the following day. If you want to look at a specific property, I just want to look at DC Boulevard, I can look at just the DC stuff and work through those tasks as well. So it's just a matter of figuring out how to use the filter. When we are on the transaction screen, you can see a summary that this is a dummy account, which is why I have 859 past due tasks. But the different folks on your team, how many they do have like past due in a single glance. And then we don't have a way to, it'd be nice if you could press a button and shame them and just be like, what are you doing? But she may have to reach out to them outside of Nekst and just say, hey, you've got 17 things past due, either complete them or shift them, but I need to make sure that you're on top of things.
That's where you implement the nudge features like Maverick, right?
Yeah.
Follow up with this lead, damn it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty much what it is. Yeah. So yes, there's ways that you can accomplish a lot of this. It's not as easy as pressing a button and creating a report. But we've designed it so that we can roll that feature out as soon as we can move that to the top of the priority list. One of the other features that people really like is the client portal. I can show you that unless you have something else you want me to touch on, Yvonne.
No, it's fine.
Okay. So
I have a question though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's stop share really quick. And by raise of hands, how many on this call actually have a product that you allow the consumer or client into, where you give them access to their portal? Okay, Mariah and Kelly, you're one team. So you and Kelly. So really, there's the majority concepts that we talk about this a lot. Do you want the consumer in on it? So I would love your take, Brett, as a team lead and how you guys utilize it. And then when you show that.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let me go back and share. You do not want to give out any more information than you have to. So we made some big mistakes. Originally, we wanted you to invite your clients in because we thought we were going to create some sort of wonderful round circle experience where they could see how hard you're working. And all that happened was people showed up and said, why are these things past due? And they would just freak out more than they had to. Or they're like, what is this program? Why do I need to learn it? I'm closing in 3 weeks. Like, what is this? I don't understand. It was just way too foreign. Or, you'd expect the lender or the title company to use your system and they're not doing that, right? The idea that we're all going to work together is never going to happen. So we just have to get over it. So then it's a matter of, how can I safely give the client information and exposure to the transaction without it ever negatively impacting me, but can hopefully answer their questions? It shows that they have an understanding of everything involved. So we came up with a client portal with the idea of making it extremely simple to share, very visually friendly, and something that will never come back to bite you. For this 123 Oman Boulevard that I set up, we haven't done anything to this portal except we did set up some basic view, if you want to call it that. But I'll go, let me see. We set up like a template. That's the word I was thinking of. But all I'm going to do is add a photo, which some people said can sync it to your MLS to pull in a photo. That's a lot of work for this little step. So we don't have it synced to the MLS yet. It may be something down the line. But ultimately, this is what you get without doing anything outside of uploading your contract. So we have a nice, pretty photo. We have all of the important deadlines involved. We have a roadmap of all the key dates and what they mean and when those dates are. And you can actually link recommended service providers to this. You can share with them any referred or recommended service providers for their loan, for their inspections, for movers, for utility companies, really anything that you typically give out as your recommended people can show up here. And then you can also add notes when you want it to not only be shared with the team, but also shared with the client. There's an extra box you check when you leave a note. You can pick and choose which transaction parties you want to display. And then you can also include the documents from the transactions. Nothing here.
This. I absolutely adore this.
Yeah. And this is, and it's meant to be mobile friendly. So as they're clicking through, they have this like menu at the bottom where they're skipping from page to page. This does not require a login of any kind. It is constantly updating as you update your transaction. So if you add more documents, it'll show up if you want it to. If we go back here to the setup, this is where if you do want to modify it specifically for this person, so let's say they already have a lender and you do not want to recommend additional lenders, you can simply come in here and uncheck any of the mortgage lenders that you don't want to provide. Or if there's a specific lender you want to provide because they specialize in FHA or whatever, or bridge loans, you can do that. But you can spend a little bit of time adding or removing things that you want or do not want included. You can also choose who you're branding, whether it's your team lead, whether it's the agent involved. If you're a transaction coordinator, you can brand the agent who sent you the file. If you're sharing it with that person, if you want to, where there's schedule a home inspection, you can come in here and say, you can even refer it within the roadmap itself. And you can pick and choose which of those folks you want to have included as well. And it shows up in the roadmap itself. So this is, again, we try for pretty and simple, not a lot of extra work on your end, and we want it to look good too.
Password, Brett, that was the most important thing. There was no password to get into this, which I thought was brilliant.
No login.
Yeah. What are they going to do? At this point, you're under contract. What are you going to get? Your meet the team document, or they're going to find out something that it's just, we try to keep it as simple as possible.
These things are they clickable? What if they click on something, are they going to take them somewhere else, or no? It's just static.
So if they click on this, it'll technically open up the document. Oh. And if they want to download it, they can. Sorry, this is a permit search apparently. So we have some dummy documents in here. You can have a website for yourself. If they want to click on it or call any of these people, technically they can be moved out. By the time, these links are not made to be indexed by Google. If someone were to somehow guess this, they could stumble upon it, what are they going to do? So we didn't feel like creating an account would make any sort of sense.
No proprietary or secret information. Kelly had a good question. Can a video be embedded in this somewhere, or would you even care?
Yeah, so we support links at the moment. We do not, and we support, you can embed photos and emails. We do not have a way to embed videos yet. There's a lot of people that use Dub or Bomb, and that is something we have let me see, I'll just go to it directly.
While you're doing that, on the
go ahead.
You're going out your templated emails that you do. Can that have an embedded YouTube or Vimeo?
So what we recommend is putting an image and then linking it. So it looks like a video is the best way to do it. I know sometimes people want to record the video and instantly add it. We'll get there to where we'll have those integrations. That's going to come probably after we do CRMs, after we do document providers like Dotloop, SkySlope, things like that, where you can move the contract directly in. Then we would go directly into our little things like that, like additional sales tools, like a bomb. So in here we have a lot of features. So people can come in, they can vote on them if they want as well. So if there's things that you want, just let us know or vote the ones up that you think you would use. And this is also how we help prioritize what's necessary. Sometimes your idea might be terrible or impossible, and we do our best to try to clean those up or just explain why we can't make that happen. The technology doesn't exist, but we do rely on a lot of our user base to help us decide what's most important, and then we work it in as best we can.
Perfect. Anybody have any other questions for Brett today?
You might have already mentioned this. How long does it usually take from start to finish onboarding? Have you seen average amount of time if someone's moving all of their workflows over? What is the process for that?
Yeah, we do. So part of our process and our pricing, and I'll send Yvonne, we have some special pricing and some coupon codes that we're doing for Black Friday type stuff. So I'll send that to Yvonne so she can send them out. Basically for teams, we're doing a big discount on the monthly fee of $100 or the annual fee of $1,000 off for the year. So we're really just cutting it, and we can go over pricing if we really want to. But there's some big discounts there. But we also have a setup fee that we're waiving on annual plans. So if you send us your workflows, and I talked a little bit about this with Kelly, I've seen some crazy micromanagers that have 300 step processes for closing something out. It's ridiculous. So we just say, look, as long as you're like doing reasonable action plans, we can build these in for you. It'll take us normally to onboard somebody. We have them. What's that?
Is 100 okay?
Yeah, 100 should probably be fine. It's if you have 10 different plans, we probably talk about how you can probably merge some of those and repurpose some of them. And there's a way that we can make them smarter. You're not updating. If you have the same plan for each team member, there's some ways that we can make it a little bit smarter. You're not updating 10 plans when you want to make a change to the way that you process a workflow. So like in meeting with so many different people and working through these processes, I've got to learn a lot about how, companies operate. I will give suggestions sometimes if I think that they can be saving themselves a lot of time and hassle by building processes that are a little bit easier to use and update, because you want this to be a process that continues to develop and grow and get better as your team gets better. There'll be times where we help consolidate some things if we can, but normally
best rule of thumb in that situation, the best rule of thumb is always to do your master task list, your primary ones, like you mentioned, pre-listing, marketing, the listing, contract to close, cancellation, closing. And then you don't put everything that could ever possibly happen on a deal, because you're only putting the masters that would apply to almost all transactions. And then occasionally you're going to have another transaction, you'll add something new, right? So I think that narrows down, it cleans up your task list to not be extreme. But I
so it really
have seats. And so that I wanted to go to that. So your solo is one seat.
So our solo, so this, if you're solo, so if you're the admin and you do everything for your agent's never going to log in because like they just trust you with everything, you can get by with one seat. And we always want people to try it before you buy it and then step into it. So we have a free version. The only thing this doesn't have is we don't have text messaging set up because there's just some laws and things that we have to do to configure text campaigns. But you pretty much all understand how that works. Also, this will not be trained on your contracts. You can't actually upload a transaction to see it work. It takes some time for us to do that. So, but this will allow you to manually set up a transaction, play around with all the different features. Then you move up to the Solo Pro, which is $49 a month, or it's 2 months free if you sign up for an annual plan. There is a $299 onboarding fee where we train our AI on your contracts and we help you to develop your workflows. And there's some other kind of customization that goes along with that. If you're a team and you want at least 2 seats, we have administrator permissions, which is you can do everything. And then we have team member permissions. Team members are, if you're on a team and you have people that you want to tell them what to do, but not give them any power whatsoever to mess up everything that you're doing, you can give them a team member seat. Those are $19 a month versus $49 a month. The $49 per month people are the ones that are going in, creating transactions, or you want to give them total flexibility to have nearly full access in the system. Okay.
What's the difference between Solo Pro and Team Pro? If you do Solo Pro and add 2 or 3 admins for $200 a month versus Team Pro that would have the same number of seats.
So so if you have 2 Solo Pro accounts, it just means that you cannot, let's say that there's Ben and Stacy, and they want to they have one process. Ben does some stuff, Stacy does the other stuff. They can't work together, right? They're not shared transactions.
Okay, so
it's a solo login.
Team is the only one that you can share transactions and add multiple seats to that program.
Correct. Yep. This comes with 2 admin and 2 team member seats. Like I said, we're knocking $100 a month off of this price, or $1,000 for the year. So it's going to be a pretty big discount between now through like the Black Friday holiday. So I'll send you a promo, Yvonne, for you to share with the group if you'd like. And so that's the pricing set up. And then as you grow, you can add additional seats and work together. But the hope is that this offers enough value that it's actually saving you a ton of time.
That's great. Thank you very much, Brett, for being here today. And thanks, Lori, for bringing it back to my attention and back to surface. I think it's a great product for smaller teams and that. And sky's the limit. You've got a lot more you can add to that. And user interface is good and easy to use, ease of use. So
that's right.
The key.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Brett, very much.